I often say, oh, I'll just think about it whenever I'm facing a challenge, hoping that I can avoid thinking about it until the solution just pops into my mind at 3 a.m. one night. But the reality is that we can't avoid deep thinking if we want to come up with creative solutions to the challenges we're facing and new ideas for growth in our business. Welcome to Imperfect Action. I'm Steph Taylor. For years, I read all the books, downloaded all the freebies, and did all the courses. But it wasn't until I started taking imperfect action that my business had its first $1 million year. Imperfect action is about doing things before you're ready, prioritizing consistent action over perfect action, and moving forward, even when you're not sure you're doing it right. On this show, you can expect mindset advice, actionable marketing tips, and strategies to build a business that brings you more profit, more freedom, and even more joy. Are you on the list to get my daily Biz Boosters? Every day, I'll send you a bite-sized prompt designed to help you grow your business in a more intentional way. Sign up at stephtaylor.co/DBB or at the link in the show notes. Hey, welcome back to Imperfect Action. This is episode 692. Today, I'm sharing 5 harsh truths that I have recently learned about growing to that next level in business. So I recently just got back from a little ski retreat business event kind of thing, where I got to hang out with 15 other entrepreneurs, business owners, and it was really different to a lot of the communities that I've hung out with and the events that I've been to most of the time in my business, because they were very different businesses. You know, there were software businesses, agencies, really only like maybe 1 or 2 other online business owners in the style that this business is, right? So it was really nice to step out of the normal echo chamber of other online business owners and hear different perspectives from different industries. And especially because many of the other ones who were there were miles ahead of me in business. You know, some of them had been in business for 20, 30 years. And because their businesses were so different and they had this experience, I was able to learn a few things that I realized might have been holding me back from growing my business to the next level. So I'm going to share 5 of these harsh truths that I realized while I was there. Number 1, 20% of what we do in our business usually delivers 80% of the results. This is the Pareto Principle, but I'd never really thought about it in a business concept, right? The Pareto Principle being that roughly 80% of outcomes or consequences comes from 20% of inputs or causes. And you might notice this in areas of your business where 20% of your clients are the ones who are delivering 80% of your revenue, or 20% of your students in your course are the ones who are asking 80% of the questions, or 20% of your Instagram posts make up 80% of your engagement. And this happens also in a broader business environment, right? Where maybe 20% of the businesses online are making 80% of the revenue. I don't know. I just made that one up. But it's quite an interesting concept. So what I am reflecting on is, what is the 20% of effort that I am putting in right now that is delivering 80% of the results? And then looking at how can I double down on that? So rather than trying to do more new things, which we all love doing more new shiny things, but rather than trying to do those new things, how can I then put an extra 10% into that effort and leverage that for growth? Okay, number 2, deep thinking time is essential for coming up with new ideas. I often say, oh, I'll just think about it whenever I'm facing a challenge, hoping that I can avoid thinking about it until the solution just pops into my mind at 3 a.m. one night. But the reality is that we can't avoid deep thinking if we want to come up with creative solutions to the challenges we're facing and new ideas for growth in our business. When I was at this retreat, one of the guys there shared his deep thinking process, which I intend to steal, and that is 45 minutes a day of written thinking. So taking 45 minutes to reflect on one question. For example, what is the 20% of effort that's delivering 80% of results, and what are some ways I can double that? So then writing, free flow writing without stopping for 45 minutes, reflecting on that question, thinking about that question, and then taking a bit of a break, reviewing, refining the ideas that come from that and saving those for later or to implement. And a really interesting thing that came up for me is actually deep thinking is very different to overthinking. And I can be very guilty of overthinking. I know a lot of us overachievers can happily overthink till the cows come home. And overthinking is usually what happens when we try to solve a problem without the facts, simply by trying to think our way through it. And it usually ends up in this thought spiral where we just go round and round and round in this never-ending loop. And in the case of overthinking, the solution is to take action so that we can get the facts that we are missing. For example, if we're overthinking about whether we might spend some time creating a course and we're not sure if anybody will buy for it, like, will anyone pay money for this course that I'm creating? You can overthink, but you're not going to get to a solution. You're never going to figure out whether somebody would pay money for it until you actually ask people to buy it. So in that case, the solution is taking action, asking people to buy it, and the facts that you are getting is either, yes, people are paying money for it, or no, they are not paying money for it. Whereas deep thinking is then reflecting on ideas, creative solutions, rather than trying to solve something without the facts. Okay, number 3, I realized I'm still wasting a lot of time doing lower value tasks in my business. And the sooner that I can stop doing these, the sooner I can start focusing on the higher value tasks. And one of the ideas or one of the concepts that was brought up at the retreat was the concept of $10 tasks, $100, $1,000, $10,000 tasks in terms of how much value they are creating for the business. And then looking at my to-do list, and I realized how much of my list is still $10 and $100 tasks, simply because I've been too lazy to delegate them to my team, because it's like, oh, it's going to take me 5 minutes to do this, whereas it's going to take me 20 minutes to document it and explain how to do it. So there's so much there where it's like, oh, I need to get these $10 and $100 tasks off my plate, because my value to my business is in idea generation, it's strategy, it's content creation, and it's showing up live and teaching my students. Those are my $1,000 and $10,000 tasks. And the more that I can get those $10 and $100 tasks off my plate, the more time that I will have to focus on the tasks that actually move the needle. So that's another thing that I will be reflecting on, is what are my $10 and $100 tasks, and what are the $1,000 and $10,000 tasks I can replace those with. Number 4, I realized that the most successful people read a lot. And I realized that I actually need to read a little bit more. I'm not reading enough books. And I'm a total bookworm, but the one thing that I realized from this retreat was everyone was throwing book recommendations around. And so many of these recommendations had been on my list of books that I wanted to read for a very, very, very long time. And I had just not got around to it because, in the evenings when I get to the end of the day, I'm like, oh, I just want to watch Melrose Place reruns. Right? So, and most of the time I'm not even focusing on what's going on in the show. It's just background noise while I'm doing other things. So instead of doing that, I know I need to carve out a little bit more intentional time in my evenings to read a little bit more. And a lot of the books that were suggested, they're not even business books. They're books around mindset, spirituality, autobiographies. These were all really commonly recommended ones, not just practical business books. Okay, and then number 5, this one was a really interesting one for me, and that is that you won't grow into pain. So if something is really painful in your business right now, you're not going to grow in that area. You need to fix that pain first before you will be able to grow into it. And in hindsight, I can see how obvious this has been in the past. For example, back when I was working with one-on-one clients in a marketing capacity, I found it really exhausting. For each new client that I signed, it created a lot of extra work for me. So I was starting to dread the new clients. Even though I knew a new client meant an increase in revenue, it was really painful. So I would dread it. And then I would sort of subconsciously push these new clients away because I didn't want to grow into that pain. So another thing that I'm going to be reflecting on is, what are the pain points in this business as it currently is? And how can we fix those before we try to pour more fuel on the fire and add new things to the business? So there you have it, 5 harsh truths. 20% of what we do usually delivers 80% of the results. Deep thinking time is essential for coming up with new ideas. How much time are we wasting doing those low value tasks? And the most successful people read a lot. And lastly, you won't grow into pain. If you're not already subscribed to this show, hit the follow button in Spotify or plus in Apple Podcasts, and it just means you'll get each new episode straight to your podcast app every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday as soon as it is released. Thank you so much for listening. Catch you next time.